Why can you thank a 1940s Hollywood movie star for your ability to have Wi-Fi on your computer, send a text on your phone, or listen to music via Bluetooth? As digital natives, we barely even stop to think about the technology that fills our everyday, normal life. This past semester, getting thrown into virtual learning, I have realized how much I rely on technology. Hedy Lamarr shouldn't just be remembered for her beautiful face, but also for her intelligence as an inventor. Through her father, her desire to invent, and her wanting to do her part in the World War II war effort, we will discover her impact on our daily technology-filled lives. One of the most influential people in Hedy's life was her father. As Hedy grew up, her father encouraged her to explore her surroundings by teaching her how machines were created and how they worked. This ultimately sparked her interest in inventing. According to Cheslak's 2018 National Women's History Museum website article, Hedy Lamarr, these conversations guided Lamarr's thinking, and only 5 years old, she could be found taking apart and reassembling her music box to see how it worked. Hedy was a very beautiful girl, and as stated in Ray's 2012 article, Hedy Lamarr was both movie star and inventor, and the Philadelphia Inquirer would be regarded for a time as the most beautiful woman in the world. However, because of the time period, her intelligence was put on the back burner, as the only thing that mattered was her beauty. At the age of 16, she was discovered for her beauty and quickly gained movie star success, as well as many fans, one of which would become her husband. Hedy married Fritz Mandl, an Austrian weapon dealer, in 1933. They enjoyed some happiness together, but it would soon end as Hedy realized she would never be successful with the way Mandl controlled and treated her like an object. Hedy devised a plan to switch places with her maid in 1937 and escape to London, taking with her newly gained knowledge about war and weaponry from her husband and her desire to invent. In London, Hedy met Louis B. Mayer, the head of MGM Studios. This ultimately paved her way to become a successful movie star in America. Hedy continued her acting career in America, but as noticed in Chodos's 2011 article, June 1941, Hedy Lamarr and George Antheil submit patent for radio frequency hopping in the American Physical Society News. Lamarr was more than just a beautiful face. She had natural mathematical ability and lifelong love of tinkering with ideas for invention. This continued love would come into play when she met composer George Antheil. Once Hedy showed her interest in inventing, the two began talking about the raging war in Europe and the United States' possibility of entering it. The bad boy music in Antheil's 1945 memoir titled The Bad Boy of Music, George says that Hedy did not feel very comfortable sitting there in Hollywood and making lots of money when things were in such a state. In one of their conversations about radio-controlled torpedoes, Hedy explained her worry to George that German U-boats were sinking ships and how she believed the U.S. military could have problems with enemies interfering with their torpedo guidance system. When Hedy explained this problem, she also explained her idea of how consistently changing frequency for a torpedo would be much harder to block, as it never followed the same pattern. This conversation set in motion the creation of frequency hopping technology by Hedy and George. Hedy used the idea of frequency hopping, which is explained in George's 2019 article, Thank This World War II Era Film Star for Your Wi-Fi, in the Smithsonian Magazine, as a way for the radio guidance transmitter and the torpedo's receiver to jump simultaneously from frequency to frequency, making it impossible for the enemy to locate and block a message before it had moved to another frequency. Antheil, using his music background, suggested they could sync these rapidly changing frequencies similar to the way a player piano plays by itself. They filed for a patent on June 10, 1941, and it was granted on August 11, 1942. With the U.S. now in World War II, Hedy and George wanted to do their part in the war effort. They wanted to help the Allies and decided to share their frequency hopping system with the U.S. Navy. They had little success though, as the Navy didn't have the resources for their idea to be successful on a large scale. However, to prevent this idea from leaking out to any enemies, it was marked as classified, denying access to George and Hedy. Although Hetty's idea of frequency hopping was not used during World War II, it was eventually declassified in the 80s, and many companies began experimenting with frequency hopping, leading to many new applications in the future, such as Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Hetty never received any money for her idea, but it was eventually recognized for it over 50 years later. In Rhodes' 2012 book, Hetty's Folly, we learn that on the evening of March 12, 1997, at the Electronic Frontier Foundation Conference, Hetty received the 6th Annual Pioneer Award. Even if you had never heard of Hetty Lamar before today, if you sent a text this morning on your phone, submitted your speech with your computer, or listened to music on your wireless Beats, you should take a moment to thank Hetty Lamar. Through her inspiration from her father, desire to invent, and dedication to her country, you now know that she should be remembered for more than just her beautiful face. In Hetty's own words, the brains of people are more interesting than the looks, I think. Thank you.
5:15.